You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and it's time once again to dive into some power rankings, putting all 32 teams in order from worst to first following Week 9 in a Monday Night Football matchup that wound up being another dud. It kind of just feels like it is the status quo of Monday Night Football games. I don't know what it is, but I feel like we get a lot of slow, just grindy, when are we going to get to the finish line type games on Monday night. So make sure you comment down below. Let me know your power rankings, your thoughts on my power rankings. But let's dive right in, beginning with the bottom 4 teams. And I'll start off by saying that there is a lot of teams just kind of staying put where they are, and I think the bottom 4 teams show that very well. Beginning with number 32, the Arizona Cardinals, who dropped last week and are now staying put at number 32. We have the Carolina Panthers at number 31, the New York Giants sitting at 30, and then the New England Patriots at 29. All 4 of these teams not moving, staying put right where they are. I think based off their performances this week, I don't think anyone would really argue with me as to why they are where they are. I think that they all belong in those spots. Moving into the next 4, though, we'll actually get into some more discussion now. I just feel like there's not a ton to say about those bottom 4 teams. They are where they are. At number 28, the Chicago Bears. They take a tough loss and a closer loss than I anticipated against the New Orleans Saints. We have the LA Rams falling 4 spots here following a really bad loss to the Green Bay Packers with no Matthew Stafford. We had the Las Vegas Raiders rallying to a routing of the New York Giants, moving up a spot here. While they did have a massive game, I don't think you can give them too much for taking down a hapless Giants team that just lost Daniel Jones during that matchup. And then we have the Green Bay Packers, who took advantage of those LA Rams we just mentioned. So the Chicago Bears, they're staying where they are as well. A little bit more competitive than I think some people expected, especially early on in that matchup there. I thought they brought it to the Saints defense early on, and then they just kind of ran out of gas. And ultimately, while the Tyson Bagent story has been fun to listen to and watch the last few weeks here, I think the Bears are kind of sitting around now waiting for Justin Fields to get back, and I think they would rather it sooner than later. The Rams, of course, no Matthew Stafford with Brett Rippon under center, looked exactly as I expected them to, and I was not really surprised of this outcome here. Offense just looked completely dysfunctional, and it was just not a unit that was going to win a football game, especially against a Green Bay Packers defense that, for this team being where they are right now, has actually been pretty solid. The offense has kind of let down the other side, so I didn't really expect much from the Rams, especially with the rumors that Stafford wasn't going to play, and when it was confirmed he wasn't, my feelings were definitely confirmed in that matchup there. Unfortunate loss for the Rams, but they are where they are. At number 26, those Las Vegas Raiders, I think it is just absolutely fitting that you go and fire Josh McDaniels following all the conversation that went around with the team meeting, what Josh McDaniels said to Antonio Pierce. I think there's just so much to sit back and take in regarding the Raiders, but if there's one thing you can be happy for, it is that in the post-Josh McDaniels era, this team looks like they might have a pulse. It is going to be a long second half of the season for the Raiders. I'll be very interested in watching and seeing how they perform this back half of the season, but I just don't see it as a coincidence that you lose Josh McDaniels and suddenly this team just flips right around and rallies to a routing of the New York Giants. And I'm looking forward to seeing where they go. The Packers at number 25 here, good victory, a win that I think you needed to get, and on top of that, you should have gotten, and you went and did just that. I'm not really going to sit here and say too much about the offense because, again, it is what it is. It's a young, inexperienced crew that is just going through the growing pains and motions. But they didn't do anything to cost you a game that you more than certainly should have been winning. So there is that to take away. And like I said, defense did a great job shutting down Brett Rippon and the Rams. I have really no complaints about what the Packers did. They went in, they got the victory in a game that they should have been winning. So you get a +1 for that. Moving into the next 4 teams, at number 24, the Denver Broncos, having a very successful bye week. They moved up a spot just because of teams moving around, mainly because of the Rams falling. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers slipping down 3 spots following another loss. They are now on a 4-game losing streak. They went from 3-1 to now 3-5. The Atlanta Falcons and Tennessee Titans, despite losing this week, both staying put just because of kind of what's going on around them here, and we'll discuss that. But the Denver Broncos, like I said, successful bye week. They're on a couple of games winning streak right now, so we'll give them credit where it's due. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now. I think they belong just above the teams that are right below them, but we'll see where they go from here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, the defense was their strength, and the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, more importantly, just completely dismantled them from the very... what's crazy is the game really didn't get out of hand until late. That was the crazy part, is like the floodgates really started to open in that second half. But my goodness, not sure what happened in that game defensively, just a complete meltdown on their part. And it's unfortunate because we finally saw the offense step up and be what I think that this offense could be if they're just consistently firing on all cylinders. I'm a guy that likes Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he's not turning out to what I was hoping he would be. I thought that he showed great signs in Cleveland, and then them just kind of jumping the gun for the Deshaun Watson situation and not giving him the benefit of the doubt with the shoulder injury just kind of didn't sit right with me, and I've been rooting for him to find a new landing spot. And I felt like Tampa Bay, with the weapons that they have on offense, could be good. Offense has been ugly to this point, and they finally put it together this week. And then the defense lets CJ Stroud march down the field in about 40 seconds for a game-winning drive. I had no words at the end of that game. I had Tampa Bay winning, and I did not expect that game to be the highest scoring affair of the weekend, but sure enough, it was. Hats off to what the Texans did, but man, Buccaneers got some soul searching to do 4 games in a row on the losing side of things. The Atlanta Falcons and the Tennessee Titans. Both of these teams can be kind of lumped together in a conversation here. The Falcons, I just cannot believe they went and blew the game the way they did, and it's kind of inexcusable at this point. The offense finally looking good with Taylor Heineke, although there were some things that I think you could look at, and whether it was a bad pass or just a few weird decisions that you weren't too happy with that you could probably like nitpick with the Falcons offense, but this was by far the most explosive this offense has looked this entire season. That Jonnu Smith screen pass that went to the house was electric, to say the least. And when that play was developing and I'm watching it, I didn't even realize it was Jonnu Smith initially. My thought is, that's got to be like Kyle Pitts or someone. But no, sure enough, Arthur Smith goes and gets his tight end that he worked with in Tennessee, and it's Jonnu Smith taking a massive screen to the house. But again, your defense collapsing late in the game, and even throughout the entirety of the game, you're going up against, to start, a rookie quarterback who gets knocked out early, and then Joshua Dobbs, who is literally on the sideline teaching his cadence to his offensive linemen. And on top of that, you could see they kept panning over to him and to Kevin O'Connell. They're like going through coaching sessions on the sideline while their defense is playing. I don't know what to make of that loss. There is no reason that the Falcons should have lost that game, other than Josh Dobbs is someone who I think might deserve a starting gig permanently somewhere. And considering the situation with Kirk Cousins right now and what we just got out of him, it might be Minnesota. I know it's just one game, but I left that game and what I've seen from Josh Dobbs this season, at least thinking to myself, this guy might just be a starter. And maybe it's because he's a NASA space scientist or whatever it is that he is. I don't know what the terminology is, but he's a smart guy, and he can clearly figure things out on the fly over there. Keep an eye on Minnesota, because what they did to Atlanta this week, embarrassing. I cannot believe that the Falcons went and lost that game. Titans, though, they're more on the they're more on the side of heartbreaking fashion, is what I'm trying to say here. Really tough way to lose. You make your way all the way down to the field, but ultimately come up short in a game against the Steelers that was just it's a typical Steelers game, a very defensive slugfest type of matchup. Not a lot of offense going on from either side, and you just come up short. For what it's worth, that was a really good game from Tennessee, despite maybe what the numbers tell you. But after Will Levis having his phenomenal debut game, kind of comes back down to earth and has a more realistic game, I would say, for a rookie, this was kind of what I expected from them. I actually predicted the game 20-17, and it wound up being 20-16. So roughly around where I expected it to be. We got a far more normal game from Will Levis, and I think that there's definitely a lot to enjoy about his game through 2 weeks. There's plenty of season left left for him to learn and grow within this offense here. I don't know if the plan is to have Ryan Tannehill come back under center, but at this point now, I think you just kind of roll with Will Levis. He's the guy you drafted in the second round. He showed some really good signs. He had some rookie pains in the second game here, and to be fair, you can't really even slight him. Like, you're going up against a Pittsburgh defense that has been giving people problems all season long. So for him to go into that game and have you in a position to potentially win late, I mean, you can't really knock the guy. But moving into the next 4 teams, at number 20, we have the Indianapolis Colts sliding up 3 spots here. The Washington Commanders, winners but losers in the power rankings. At number 19, the New York Jets tumbling 4 spots here to number 18, and then the New Orleans Saints jumping up a couple of spots here. The lowest winning record team in my power rankings right now. The Saints at 17, 5-4, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the Colts moving up 3 spots, good victory defensively, best game by them this entire season. I did not expect to see 2 pick sixes returned in that game there, but I mean, just hats off to what Kenny Moore and that defense did in this game here. They took advantage of a rookie quarterback in ways that, I don't think he could have ever anticipated in his life, to be throwing 2 pick sixes in the same game. But ultimately, this was probably one of the best defensive performances we've seen from Indianapolis. And, I don't really think it's coincidental that it happened against the Carolina Panthers team that is currently sitting at number 31 in the power rankings, as they are sitting at 1-7. But overall, really good game. Offense continues to be surprisingly competitive as Jonathan Taylor continues to knock the rust off. Michael Pittman showing some absolute toughness in that game, getting knocked out early, coming back in, and losing Josh Downs early, I think honestly helped make that game end up being a little bit closer than it potentially could have, because Josh Downs has proved that he is a difference maker in that offense there. And if he was still in that game for the majority and he wasn't dealing with that knee issue, I think things could have maybe been a little bit uglier. The Commanders at number 19. So how do you win and then drop a couple of spots here? Well, this is slightly a correction because my power rankings came out prior to them making a massive trade, just fire sale of getting rid of their 2-star defensive ends. But on top of that, plus the game and how they won, I feel like they let a Patriots team that, for what it's worth, has just not been great at all this season, hang around a little too long, in my opinion. That was a game that I kind of thought the Commanders would come in and maybe handle them a little bit better. The Patriots offense has just been awful to watch all season long, and you had that bad miscommunication on the Ramondre Stevenson massive touchdown. There was just some things in that game I didn't like, both defensively, which you're going to see some regression, I guess, at this point now, because you traded away 2 key pieces on your defense, which, to be fair, they didn't look as bad as I think some people might have expected. My issues more stem on the offensive side. I think you should have taken advantage of a Patriots defense that honestly was making a handful of mistakes in that game. And again, you missed out on a few points. I feel like you should have handled that game a little bit better. So somewhat of a correction because of the trade deadline last week, because I had them a couple of spots higher, and because I would have liked to see a better win from the Commanders this week. But again, I still think that they're a middle of the pack team, one that can surprise you week in and week out. They've been very competitive, and I hammered this a lot last week, and I want to make sure my beliefs are still apparent. I still think they're a solid unit. 2 of their losses are literal tight losses to the best team in the NFL by a lot of people. So I don't think you can really knock the Commanders too much right now. There's a lot to like about them, but there are just some games where they come out and they don't look as good as they should, in my opinion. The Jets at number 18, dropping 4 spots here with their loss on Monday Night Football to the Chargers. Man, oh man, just offensively an absolute mess. The offensive line is in tatters. Zach Wilson, I don't know if he's regressing, but it does not look good over there offensively. And I've got to give some major credit to the defense, because I felt like they hung on. They absolutely hung on and kept that game close to the very end. And it was just that final strip sack at the end of the game that ultimately was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But it sucks because you have such a great defense over there in New York for the Jets, and they're just being wasted because of the offensive issues that they're dealing with right now. And a lot of it is like, it's not just the whole no Aaron Rodgers thing. Like, there's a handful of injuries that this team's dealing with, especially on the offensive line, and Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Sebastian Joseph Day all seemed like they were having a field day going up against a group that I think has been rotated through at least like 5 or 6 times at this point in the season. The Saints at number 17, moving up a couple of spots here. Like I said, above 500, they are the lowest team, and they're actually behind some teams that are sitting at 500 right now. For me, the New Orleans Saints probably should be a little bit higher, but you see the way that game kind of played out against Chicago. there were many points in that game where I thought they might cough up a game that they absolutely should be winning, and honestly should have dominated a little bit more considering what they've did to some other lesser teams in the NFL. I don't know if they were just overlooking the Chicago Bears and maybe weren't as worried about what Tyson Bagent can do. He's shown that defenses, if they give him something to work with, he'll take that opportunity and run with it, literally and figuratively. So I was a little bit surprised and disappointed with the Saints' play in that game, but they still get a good win. Some other teams above them dropping down helps you move up in the power rankings here, but they are a rocky 5-4 team, in my opinion. I just don't know if I'm quite bought into what they're doing. We come out of games sometimes thinking, this team finally figured it out, and then they have games where they either drop the game or they just look the way they did against the Chicago Bears team that's currently in the race for like the second and third pick in the NFL right now because they have the top two of the top 5 picks currently. So just a little bit of a rocky 5-4 team for me. Moving into the top half of the league, though, at number 16, we're looking at the Houston Texans moving up a couple of spots. The LA Chargers handling business, getting it done, moving up a spot here. Minnesota Vikings +1 for them. And then the Cleveland Browns dominating victory, completely manhandling a far inferior Arizona Cardinals team that is very sorely missing Joshua Dobbs following the way they looked this past week. We'll start with the Texans, and I've got to say, wow. And I'm a Colts fan, and I've got to say I am envious of C.J. Stroud. And listen, I'm excited for Anthony Richardson. I miss Anthony Richardson right now, but to see what C.J. Stroud has done in his rookie campaign to this point, and the way what he did this week was not something that you ever see rookie quarterbacks do. Once every maybe 10 years something like this pops up, and for him to step up 470 yards, 5 touchdown passes, that final drive to seal things, that strike to Tank Dell in the back of the end zone to seal the victory and just rip the absolute soul out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have got to be excited if you're a Texans fan, and even if you're not a Texans fan, and you see what's going on over there, there has to be a little hint of jealousy if you don't have your quarterback situation figured out. I'm sure there are a lot of teams in the NFL right now that are just wishing that you had C.J. Stroud in your corner. DeMeco Ryans and what they're doing over there is fantastic. They do drop weird games, and that's why I have them like right in the middle of the pack. They're a 500 team for a reason, but man, when they are on, they pull off some crazy stuff, and this week was no exception by any means. The Chargers going up a spot here. Good victory over in kind of a must-win situation to get themselves back to 500 and back in the playoff conversation here. This was probably the best defensive performance I have seen from the Chargers in the last few years. Never mind this season, but like the last few years. You finally have Joey Bosa feeling right, working alongside Khalil Mack. Sebastian Joseph Day was another sweet addition for this team last offseason as well. And to see that unit kind of really coming together now as a group, they are going to be a problem. And I think that if they can continue to move in the right direction, you do have some issues in the secondary, specifically at the cornerback spot. That group right there up front could help mitigate some of those issues there. You still have some really good safeties in the back end, so there's definitely some weaknesses in this defense, but if you can get that defensive front to look like that week in and week out, take advantage of the weak points in opposing offensive lines, keep an eye on the Chargers because they're a threat. In a game where the offense was not non-existent, but clearly struggling, and really who hasn't against the New York Jets aside from like a couple of teams this season, maybe only the Cowboys, honestly. I can't really think of anyone else besides them that really had that much success offensively off the top of my head, but for what it's worth, the Chargers put together a really complimentary game defensively, and that's something that I don't think we've been able to say about the Chargers in quite some time. So great performance on defense. Was not a great game offensively as they kind of continue to get themselves together. Justin Herbert still working away from that injury on his finger from his non-throwing hand. Austin Eckler continuing to knock the rust off, and how about that catch from Keenan Allen, man? My goodness, that was beautiful. 10,000 career receiving yards. The guy is a stud, and he's one of the most least talked about wide receivers for whatever the reason may be. Maybe it's because he's a quiet guy, but man, when he needs to show up, he does. At number 14, Minnesota Vikings. Josh Dobbs, man, I tweeted this out when it happened and the game was over. There has got to be a case study on Josh Dobbs. I don't know how this guy got passed around at the trade deadline like he was just another guy. For him to step in the way he did in Arizona and show some serious life. And don't get me wrong, there were some games where it didn't look great, but after seeing him transition to a new team and seeing what he did in that game to be able to come out victorious and help lead a game-winning drive and just another one of those rip the soul right out of the opponents that you're playing type deal against the Falcons, someone has got to look into that. I don't understand how he got just traded away for whatever the not nearly enough draft capital that the Cardinals got for him. I posed the question, with Kirk Cousins now done for the year, contract year as well, so this kind of blows that all out of the water now. He's set to be a free agent next year, and I know that the conversation is they want Kirk Cousins back in Minnesota next year. Kevin O'Connell said it himself. But you have to wonder, if Josh Dobbs continues to turn up the way he did this week, actually having the time to learn his teammates' name and learn the offense there in Minnesota and get to practice with them for once, and Justin Jefferson comes back and they're making a run to the playoffs, do you maybe just consider letting Kirk Cousins walk and keep Josh Dobbs as QB1? Let me know what you think. At number 13, the Cleveland Browns staying put where they are, dominating the Arizona Cardinals the way they should have. 27-0, could have been 30-0 if it wasn't for a missed field goal. But overall, from start to finish, you go in and you absolutely smack a team that is the worst team in the NFL right now, and you did it the way you should. So hats off to the Cleveland Browns. You stay where you are because of where some other teams are moving around you, but it was a good win nonetheless. But the opponent not necessarily doesn't give you too much weight in terms of conversation to move you up a little bit higher. But again, very happy with the way the Browns played this week. Defense looked phenomenal. Offense looked solid. Good game altogether. Moving up to the next group of four, though, at number 12, Seattle Seahawks taking a tumble down 4 spots with their blowout loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Some questions there for sure. The San Francisco 49ers stay put right at number 11. The Pittsburgh Steelers move up 3 spots here, and this is kind of a benefit of just the Seattle Seahawks dropping down. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I firmly believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are better than the San Francisco 49ers, but there was clearly a bit of an expose going on with the San Francisco 49ers during that 3-game losing streak, and I do have my questions. And with Deontay Johnson being back now in Pittsburgh, you have to wonder, can this offense maybe start to put the pieces together and become a little bit more effective through the air? And the offensive line definitely showed some positives in the run game this week as well. So with the Seattle Seahawks, before we start diving into all of that with the Steelers and the rest of those guys, the Seahawks, what can you say that already hasn't been said to this point already? Did not expect them to just go in and get absolutely dog walked. I don't know what happened. Somebody needs to let me know, because that was not the performance I was expecting. That was, in my opinion, what was going to be the game of the week. I know a lot of people had the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys pinned as the game of the week, and it ended up being the game of the week. Absolutely. That was by far one of the most fun games to watch this year. Don't get me wrong. But I was really looking forward to this Baltimore Ravens Seattle Seahawks matchup, but man, you go into Baltimore against that defense, your offensive line did not look great. Geno Smith did not look great. Defensively did not look great. I mean, there was not really a lot to like about that game. A really tough loss, really ugly loss for Seattle. The big test now is, how do you respond? That's basically the only way I can continue that conversation on them. How do they respond? Because this is the second time now that we've seen a team that's in the upper echelon conversation of playoff contenders get absolutely waxed by the Baltimore Ravens. So you have to wonder, are they just that damn good? Possibly. At number 11, like I said, 49ers didn't play this week. Nothing happened with them. We'll keep them where they are. I'm fine keeping them at 11. The Steelers at number 3, moving up 3 spots, to number 10. Sorry, saw the +3, but no. So what we're seeing with the Steelers right now, again, defensively phenomenal. They continue to be what they are, of just an absolute, I think of them as like a boa constrictor. They just completely suffocate an offense all game, and they just need their offense to scrape some points together for them to pull out these victories that they keep getting here. And I feel like this game absolutely was not an exception for that. As for the offense, though, like I said, I do think that we saw some strides made here. Deontay Johnson's return, I think, continues to be a positive for this unit here, and the offensive line seems to be starting to figure themselves out, especially in the run game. It has not been pretty for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. They've been averaging sub 3.5 yards per carry on the ground pretty much all season long. So this was a solid game for them to kind of just continue to trend in the right direction offensively. They have it figured out on one of the more important parts of the football. That is defense. They win championships that way. Every football team does. But we're seeing some signs, subtly, but some signs of a trend in the right direction here. I don't really know where I stand as far as Kenny Pickett's play goes, because there are some moments where I kind of feel like I'm scratching my head, but I know that there are a lot of people just rooted in the whole, it's Matt Canada, and believe me, I'm on that bandwagon, that's for sure. I subscribe to the belief that Matt Canada is the problem, so don't worry, Pittsburgh fans, I hear you and I believe you, but there are some other things that need to be worked out, but I feel like I'm seeing positive trends, so I'll keep the Steelers at 10 for right now. Again, do I firmly believe that they're better than the San Francisco 49ers? The 49ers at full health? Probably not. But they're on a 3-game losing skid right now. We don't know what they're going to look like coming out of the bye week. So this could very well change next week. But right now, where Pittsburgh is and where San Francisco was heading into the bye, two completely opposite directions. One was positive and one was negative. At number 9, the Miami Dolphins coming up short. Man, you have to sit there and look at that fumble that Tyreek Hill had that went back for 6 for the Kansas City Chiefs. That was the deciding play of the game. That doesn't happen, we may be talking a completely different scenario here. But offense, once again, shut down by another great opponent, a playoff team, a team that was just in the Super Bowl. They now fall to 0-3 against teams that are above 500, and you have to be concerned about the Miami Dolphins just a tiny bit, that maybe they're really good at beating up the bad teams, but they have not shown up for a victory against the really good teams. And those are the teams you want to be beating. I'm not going to sit here and knock them. They do have a great record right now, amongst the better in the NFL right now, and I think there is a good conversation to have as to where they belong in the echelons of the top part of the NFL, but I'm fine with them at number 9 for right now. They still have a great offense altogether. I believe in what Mike McDaniel's doing over there. Defensively, I think we're seeing some signs of improvement as well, which is really good for them. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to be a massive difference maker for them in the back half of the season and just helping that group get better. So keep an eye on the Dolphins right now, but falling to 0-3 against the teams that are above 500, those are the games you want to be winning. Like, yeah, it's nice to beat up on the bad teams, and yeah, your record's in a good place, but are you really fine with just beating up on bad teams en route to the playoffs and then ultimately just getting knocked out in the first round because you cannot hang with the better teams? Like, that's kind of how I look at that. So you let me know, Dolphins fans. What are your thoughts on that? Moving into the top 8, though, at number 8, Buffalo Bills falling a spot here down. Same thing, Dallas Cowboys. They're at number 7. They drop a spot. Cincinnati Bengals making another big jump. +4. They move into number 6 here. I am on the Bengals bandwagon, that's for sure. And then the Detroit Lions staying put at number 5 during their bye week. So the Bills, another tough loss and another tough loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. They do not have an answer for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. I don't know what it is, if it's the scheme, if it's the matchup. There is just something that is not right. One of the biggest deciding factors for me when I was picking that game, as I picked Cincy over Buffalo, is literally just the track record of the mismatch in that game. For one reason or another, Buffalo does not have it sorted out when it comes to playing against Cincinnati. And it's been like that for quite a bit of time now. I think they only have one win against Joe Burrow right now. And it's one of those things that it's one of those weird things in the NFL where just some teams just don't match up really well against other ones for whatever the reason may be. But tough loss, one that you kind of needed now, because Buffalo's now sitting at one game over 500, 5-4. You're a little bit concerned because you don't want them to lose ground if you're a Buffalo fan over the Miami Dolphins, who it's kind of the Miami Dolphins division to lose now at this point here. But that being said, there's still plenty of games left. Just slightly concerned with how this offense can kind of come up slow. Defensively, though, I have no worries about Buffalo. For the amount of injuries they've dealt with, and for them to be able to kind of make the moves they did at the trade deadline and kind of refuel the team and just continue to stay competitive on the defensive side of the ball, love what I'm seeing from them defensively. It's just the offense, man. They come into some games and they just fall flat, and they cannot figure out the Bengals defense for whatever the reason is. Cowboys at number 7. I know there was a lot of conversation just in regards to officiating and everything. I'm not going to get into that. I don't like getting into the officiating, and my opinions will probably vary compared to what some people think and the others. I don't subscribe to the idea that the officials cost you a game or anything like that, or it comes down to the officials not making a call here or not making a call there. You put yourself as a team in the NFL in your positions to win or lose games, and if you're pointing at a call or two here or there, why not look at the execution of some other plays to come up with the actual answers for as to why you lost that game, and don't blame the refs. Like, blaming the refs is the easy answer, and that's not the right answer. It's the easy answer, and more often than not, the easy answer is not the right answer. But I will say, I got to give some credit to the Dallas Cowboys. Absolutely took it to the Philadelphia Eagles to the very end. You're literally like a mental error or just like a poorly executed route here or there away from winning that game. Like, there is just literally a couple of plays, like, officiating aside, you have to look at what you did right and what you did wrong in a game. And there's like 2 or 3 plays that you can look at with that game that if Dallas got those plays right, whether it's the touchdown that got turned over or Dak Prescott stepping out of bounds, like, those are 2 things right there. Those are 2 plays that if that doesn't happen, you probably come away with a victory. So they only drop a spot. It was a great game. Hats off to what the Dallas Cowboys did. They were able to slow down the Philadelphia Eagles and put themselves in a good position. It was just when crunch time happened, a couple of mistakes here or there, mental errors, if you will, kind of cost you a game. At number 6, the Cincinnati Bengals. Hooday, baby. Bengals are back. What can you say? They're on an absolute tear right now. I'm a little bit concerned with the injury to Jamar Chase. It sounds like there's a potential he might miss some time the way he was talking. So there is the concerns about that. But Joe Burrow being healthy absolutely gives this team a shot. And with him being healthy and playing the way he is, the rest of the team is absolutely feeding off of that momentum. And look out. I know that there was a bad start. Bad start. I had the Bengals as low as like the bottom half of the league, to like the top half of the bottom half of the league. But they were definitely sitting below number 17 at one point because they looked awful at the beginning. But since Burrow's gotten healthy and gotten himself right, he's got his mobility back. He's moving in the pocket better. He's making decisions faster. You can tell he doesn't have that lingering issue just bothering him the entire time. It's not lurking in the back of his mind as he's trying to go through his progressions or just make plays happen, or while he's sitting back in the pocket. There's a different kind of aura coming off of him right now. We got Joe Cool back. So watch out for the Cincinnati Bengals. Defensively, they can shut down some of the best offenses. Lou Anarumo over there in that defense is phenomenal. They got one of the best off-ball linebackers in Logan Wilson, and there's a lot of really good guys on that Bengals defense. But overall, I'm pumped to see where they are. I feel like the NFL is better for the Bengals being really good right now, and I'm excited to see where this Bengals team keeps on going, because I would not be surprised to see them battling for a top 3 spot in the next few weeks in the power rankings. Lions at number 5, they stay put where they are. Nothing really to kind of take away from them. They were on a bye week, and I didn't feel like they needed to move. And then to round out the very top 4 teams in the NFL right now, I even posed the question earlier today who you felt the best team, or excuse me, yesterday when you guys are seeing this. I'm recording this right after Monday Night Football. I posed the question earlier on Monday. Who do you all think is the best team in the NFL? And it was a horse race between the Eagles and the Ravens. I don't actually know what the numbers are right now as I'm recording this, but it was a horse race. It was divided by like 1%, I think, roughly. But it was just pretty much the 4 teams I have in the top right now. And to drum roll, please. We got ourselves at number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars. At number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. And at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. Nobody moves in my top 5 this week. Everyone stays where they are, and I'm very confident in my opinion on this one here. Chiefs at number 4. It was not pretty. It was not pretty. It took a massive play on defense to come away with the victory, but the Chiefs just continue week in and week out. Despite all the odds, despite poor offensive play, or maybe not necessarily the greatest defensive play, and their defense has looked really good this year, they find ways to win. And I'm not just talking this season, I'm talking in general. And it seems like the defense is doing a lot of carrying this year, which is kind of a good thing, because if you can rely on your defense, you just got to work out the kinks, and your offense needs to get hot for a few weeks in December and January. And of course, February, because of how late the season goes in the NFL now. But I really, really believe in what this Chiefs team is doing. They do not need to be the high flight offense that they've been of years past to win games. They have a very young, capable nucleus on defense over there, and they are looking as good as I anticipated they were going to be coming off the heels of their Super Bowl run last year. So keep an eye on KC. Do not doubt them. Do not count them out. I know they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars earlier this season. I have them at number 3, but the Jaguars are also trending in a direction that I'm very happy with right now as well. They've looked hot going into the bye week. I'll be curious to see how they fare. I feel like a bye week can always be a trap for those teams that go in hot. They can always cool down. You can get complacent, things like that. But I'm confident right now that if the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs played, for all I just talked up about the Chiefs, Jacksonville Jaguars defense is still really good. The offense, though, I'd probably take Jacksonville over Kansas City right now. So that would be the reasoning for why I have Jacksonville right above them at 3. The Ravens at number 2 and the Eagles at number 1. I'm sure this will be heavily debated down in the comment section down below, so by all means, feel free to fire away. Here's the deal. The Ravens now have blown out 2 teams that one is in my top 5 still, and then the second team was in the top 10 and got knocked out of the top 10 because of that blowout loss. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic performances by them, especially as of late. There have been some games, though, where that offense just falls flat, and it worries me a little bit about them. Couple of really questionable losses that I don't really think they have. Like, I honestly think that the Ravens should be undefeated right now, but they're not. Defensively, though, they have looked like an absolute juggernaut. There is a very good argument for Baltimore being number 1. Absolutely. I am not going to sit here and deny it. I'm not going to sit here and argue with anyone about it. So for any of you that are hammering away right now saying, oh, the Ravens should be 1, you're probably right. However, the Philadelphia Eagles, with only 1 loss this season in what was just a complete falling to the trap game, kind of poorly executed game offensively against the Jets, this Eagles team is in the same position they were last year. They were literally 8-1 last year. And at this point, I have a hard time betting against a team that has continued to find ways to win every single week, went through the early season grind of figuring out their offense, and despite some of the issues that they've dealt with, they continue to find ways to win, whether it's through the defense, through the ground game, through the passing game. They can beat you in every single which way possible. And I feel like Baltimore is kind of in that same area right now, but they are kind of catching up a little bit late. Yes, they've blown out the Seahawks, and yes, they've blown out the Lions. Fair enough. If that's your argument for why they should be number 1, I totally get it. But I'm going to take the team that only has 1 loss right now as my number 1 team. And that is a big deciding factor for me. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. These are my power rankings following week number 9, heading into week number 10. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. But that is it for me. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.